And welcome back. You're listening to Hysteria, the podcast for people who would love to read Melania Trump's ever-evolving prenup. Alyssa, if you found and fetched that for me, it would be the greatest present of all time.
You know what? Let me get into that. You know I love finding things, Erin. I love finding things.
That is my my Roman Empire. What's going on with that lady? What's she doing?
It's gotta be. I mean, she's still there, right?
Yes. I want, what's in the, I'm so curious. It's such a mess and it's none of my business and it makes me
Isn't it our business though? I feel like it's our business at this point. I mean.
It's an ugly part of me that wants to know about this. Like, I'm not proud of the part of me that's like, yeah, I want to see this. Like, it's an ugly part of me, but I'm owning it. Okay. I want to see it. I'm sorry. I can't. She lives inside of me, this ugly person. And I can't get her out. She won't leave. She's got squatters. Okay, joining us today for news, we've got a special treat, Crooked's VP of Politics, Shaniqua McClendon. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
She's here in studio with me.
Yeah, I'm in LA.
You're in studio with, it's so nice.
I know. I actually haven't seen the new studio, so when I walked in on last week, I was like, this is really nice.
It is. It's very nice. It's spacious. There is a chaotic mural on one side of the wall, just to give everybody a picture. There's various objects, some of which make sense and others of which don't.
Lips. Is that a Nokia?
An America phone. There's all kinds of things in here. I am really excited. We'd been planning on having Shaniqua on the show because she was going to be in town. And it just so happened that the day before Shaniqua was going to be on the show, we had yet another unprecedented thing happen in the federal government. And that was Kevin McCarthy being ousted as Speaker of the House for the first time in history. Merch idea. Baby onesies that say unprecedented on them.
And when's the last time, a white guy made history as the first to do something?
I think Kevin McCarthy it couldn't have happened to a wormier, more weaselly guy. The Schadenfreude is incredibly strong with this. Basically, for those who haven't been following along, and why would you? Because this can be tedious if you don't kind of feed on DC misery. But Kevin McCarthy was ousted on Tuesday from his position after Representative Matt Gaetz, a Floridian sex pest, campaigned against him in the most annoying way possible. But Matt Gaetz, it's like a broken clock kind of situation because Kevin McCarthy is so repugnant that you're sort of like the enemy of my enemy.
I know. It's like my hands under the table like,
yes. Go Matt Gaetz. Oh, I feel so gross saying that. And right before Kevin McCarthy lost his job, the government had almost run out of money and shut down. So the reason that Gaetz tried to oust McCarthy was because McCarthy committed the cardinal sin of working with Democrats in any way. And when they passed a continuing resolution in the wee hours of Sunday, it only keeps the government open for another 45 days. So in mid-November, we're going to be dealing with this shit again, and we might not even have a speaker by then. Shaniqua, what do you make of this giant mess?
I'm not going to lie. I know that our democracy and the country and all of those things are in the crosshairs of this, but it's been very entertaining to watch. When Kevin McCarthy took forever to actually be elected speaker, all I kept thinking about was John Boehner and Paul Ryan and how they have a pretty strong track record. This is the third Republican speaker that the Freedom Caucus has pretty much gotten rid of. But I don't know. He brought this on himself. He agreed to a bunch of ridiculous terms. And I mean, I don't know if I thought he would make it 9 months or not, but it's just really interesting that the one time he decided to be responsible and keep the government open, now he's not speaker anymore. And he's not running. I thought he would kind of keep fighting, but he's washed his hands. And now we're just going to watch this theater play out for I don't know how long.
Yeah. And what I found really interesting yesterday, entertaining, I'll say entertaining. was that the Democrats had a chance to save him. Democrats could have broken ranks, and all it would have taken is a few to just be like, no, he worked with us. We're going to keep him. And they just all kind of sat there and crossed their arms and like let them fight. Yeah. They just like popped popcorn, watched the proceedings. Alyssa, after McCarthy was ousted, he gave a speech that you actually were kind of moved by. Can you tell me a little bit about?
Way to tee me up, you asshole. I'm not going to lie. I watched his press conference. I watched him answer all the questions, and I was flummoxed. I'm like, where's this person been this whole time? It's like, it is. I thought that it was that Kevin McCarthy joins the ranks of, John McCain, Hillary Clinton, Al Gore, of people who all gave the best speeches once they had been liberated from political life in some ways. It was like Hillary never gave a better speech than when she than her concession speech to Trump. And when she gave that speech, you were like, fuck, I wish she'd been doing this the whole time. But let me tell you, he was talking about Nazis. He was talking about Hungary. I was like, oh my God, Kevin took us on a journey last night. But like, I feel like, I think he will be interesting. Like, will he leave? Will he resign his seat? Or will he become a fly in the ointment of the 8 people? Like there is no greater fundraising machine really than McCarthy, other, I guess, than maybe Trump, but like nobody really knows how much money he raises or like what's legal, so it's fine. But like, I don't know. What's he going to use that power for? Who's he going to fuck with? I mean, I feel like he is a petty bitch. I mean, he has proved that his whole life, that he is nothing if not petty. So we'll see what he brings to bear over the next couple of weeks.
I think he should get on a plane right now, the closest, most direct flight he can possibly take,
and open up a new sandwich shop.
He's got to go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and he's got to get in one of those secret Republican buses and take it up of the evil Cheney Mountain and crawl on his knees, groveling before Liz Cheney.
Oh, because he fucked her over.
Yep.
He fucked her over. Did. Everybody who could have come to his rescue, he fucked over. The only person he hadn't fucked over who could have come to his rescue was Donald Trump.
Right.
Kevin.
Kevin McCarthy was one of the greatest enablers of Donald Trump during his presidency. He completely sucked up to him. Shaniqua, so you didn't expect Trump to do anything?
No. I mean, look at January. Kevin McCarthy, it's like a, toxic relationship that he has with Trump, where Trump holds all the power. And the one time McCarthy looked like he might stand up after January 6th, he didn't. He said, I didn't say those things that he was captured on tape saying.
On the floor of the House.
Yeah. And so he, I guess he likes the abuse. I hate to blame victims, but, he's done a lot of stuff that is just, I don't know. It's really hard to feel sorry for him because he's just been so power hungry, and then he got it and couldn't keep it. Yeah,
and a report from the Washington Post on Wednesday, as Kevin McCarthy battled this week to keep the job he would eventually lose, one very powerful ally did not come to his rescue, Donald Trump. And it is a reported piece in the Post about how Trump just sort of was like, I don't know.
But he doesn't like him. I mean, McCarthy knows that, right? Like, Trump doesn't like him. And he's probably just going to keep talking crap about him. And I don't know. It's
and
really sad
you do have to love, though, that everyone's on the floor yesterday afternoon shouting on behalf of Kevin McCarthy, Jim Jordan. They're all there. And now, literally 2 minutes after his press conference ended, they're like, so I'm throwing my hat in the ring. Just want to put that out there. Jim Jordan, Steve Scalise. By the way, did not know Steve Scalise had cancer. Until they were like, he might not run.
He maybe shouldn't be running for speaker if he's...
Has he not seen what he'd be facing? It's like,
I know.
Dude, center yourself. Put your health first.
Yeah. A little self-care,
Honestly, I feel like if Kevin McCarthy had a biography come out, the title should be, And for What?
Yeah.
And for what?
Perfect.
He completely sold every piece of his soul in the pursuit of this job, Speaker of the House. He was so thirsty for it. He just bled with desperation. Every step of his political career was aimed at getting this. And along the way, he just let pieces slide. He gave things up. He let pieces slide. He embarrassed himself. He aligned himself with Donald Trump, who has no track record whatsoever of standing with
anybody.
No loyalty.
Ever.
Not even his wife.
Or vice president.
Yeah, right. I think Ivanka is the only person he's ever been loyal to, and that's very creepy. So he's Kevin McCarthy gave everything up, and now what does he have? He has an incredibly unsuccessful, like kind of floppy 9-month speakership with zero major accomplishments. He did, like Shaniqua said, make history as the first Speaker of the House to be ousted. It was like, and now what's he going to do?
I mean,
like,
I don't even think he can be a lobbyist because who's he going to go lobby that's actually going to listen to him now?
He can slink back to Bakersfield,
like 200
run for mayor.
members of Congress. Like, that's the thing. It was these 8 maniacs that ousted him. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. Like, who would want to be speaker? These 8 people, or 6 people as it ends up being, are never going to do anything different. Like, unless you make Matt Gaetz the speaker. Also, Erin, based on everything we have learned about McCarthy in the last few months, that the title of his book will be Speaker.
I appreciated Nancy Pelosi sent a tweet yesterday or on Tuesday that said that had included the phrase "the House will be in order."
Yeah,
and I was just like, "Oh, Nancy!"
And then
that's
they kicked
so
her out of
mean.
her office.
It's like, that's so cold, Nancy. But yeah,
I mean, this never happened when she was speaker.
No, and that's the thing. Like, I don't like Alyssa. You were telling me yesterday over text that McCarthy doesn't seem like an idiot. He seems like he doesn't have a soul,
right?
But he doesn't
but
seem
he's not
like an
dumb.
idiot. Yeah, there are plenty of people who don't have souls who are very
Though
smart.
I will say this. I have never seen McCarthy seem less dumb than yesterday. You know what I mean? I'm like, where was this level of like there were definitely moments, and it's like, I am a partisan person, but I can also be fair. Like, if I think someone, I don't agree with them, that's fine. They can still be smart. I had no idea Kevin had that much to share, like, ever. He has just capitulated and cowered in the face of these lunatics for so long that it's like, I mean, I hope he lets his freak flag fly now. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it seemed like he finally had a spine. And I mean, the problem is his stupidity in the beginning of this is what got him here. Yeah. And now I think, he did the right thing. He kept the government open, but that's what happens. I mean, people say this all the time, play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
Yeah, and now, we're in an unprecedented territory where we don't really have a Speaker of the House. We have a Speaker pro tem who's named Patrick McHenry from North Carolina.
Whose only power, by the way, is convening the leadership race.
Yeah.
So as Americans, we should be concerned. But wait, I have one more petty thing that I just can't listen to anymore. All the Democrats getting on TV being like, the answer is so simple. The Republicans just need to vote for Jeffries for Speaker. Who is spending their good time and energy putting that talking point in the DSCC or the DCCC memo? Like, I was like, okay, you're getting muted now too. That's some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
That's a silly point. That's a silly point. But, they don't have to, the Speaker doesn't have to be a member of the House of Representatives.
Yeah,
we've learned that.
just pick somebody with a high Q score, like a celebrity that's kind of beloved. Like
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Come on.
I would, I would watch more congressional. Because he's very
I'm
compelling.
here to pump you up.
All right, moving on to something that is also bad for America, but not funny. So that's bad for America and funny.
Yes.
This is bad for America and not funny. So summer was the season of exposing ethics violations in the Supreme Court. Wow, Clarence Thomas, you are a busy, busy boy. Now fall is here. The justices' summer break is over, and it's time for them to make some decisions. On the docket for this session, we've got the abortion pill, gun regulations, voting rights, social media cases, and more. The gun regulations one is particularly scary because it's like, should people who, should domestic abusers be allowed to have guns?
Why is that a question that needs debate.
That needs the Supreme Court. Jesus Christ. Use the sense God gave you.
A group of people who demanded protection after they overturned Roe v. Wade because they were so afraid of what people might do to them. And we're just going to say, people we know to be violent and abusers, let's debate if they should have guns or not.
Guns. I'm aghast, but there's been a history on the Supreme Court of just completely blowing up gun regulations, and I'm not very optimistic. There's also that ridiculous abortion pill ban that was court shopped down in Texas and made its way to the Fifth Circuit, which is essentially
the Fifth Circuit is exhausting.
I know.
In the tank. Let's get rid of it. Let's have one fewer.
Pretty much.
You get fired.
Get that Casmeric out of Amarillo. I swear to God.
Yeah, if I had a nickel for every time I heard that sentence, Alyssa.
I know, especially on this podcast.
And then there's also a really troubling case. We talked about this maybe a year and a half ago. We saw that people who were disability advocates were kind of sounding the alarm that this court might make moves to chip away at the Americans with Disabilities Act. The ADA, which was a law that was passed in the early 90s, signed into law by the first George Bush. And it really provides a ton of protection for Americans with disabilities. And one of the primary mechanizations of the way that it's enforced is people file lawsuits against businesses that are not in compliance. So if you're, and you don't have to have visited the business.
Right.
You can just be a person in a wheelchair and you're like, that place doesn't have a ramp. I can't get in. You can file a lawsuit. Or you can get a phone call that's like, this place doesn't have a wheelchair. You can file a lawsuit. There is a company that is suing over whether or not that's allowed. Now, look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a Supreme Court. I got talked out of that. But there's something to me, it's like the Supreme Court this last session allowed somebody who hadn't even been asked.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Shaniqua, you go ahead. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, this is about the woman who sued to not have to make websites for gay couples, right? Or wedding websites, and no one had ever asked her
Nobody
to do
had
it.
even asked her.
And they made a decision based off of it. And so if she can do that and have a whole Supreme Court case that affects the entire country, this is the same thing to me.
Yeah.
And
that was my first thought. I was like,
where's the consistency?
Yeah.
Because it's not about that. They are trying to shape our country into something else. And I think, ableism feels like a form of bigotry that we're still kind of okay with. It's not as unacceptable as other ones. And in large part because companies get to say it's too much of a burden. It's going to cost us too much. But everyone should be able to access society and life in the same ways. And I don't know, I think as a society, we need to kind of shift and be more protective of people with disabilities and ensuring that they have access in the same ways. But it just feels like it's okay to say it cost us too much money.
I mean, but the ADA is pretty tough, compared to other laws protecting people against discrimination. Alyssa, you're nodding.
No, I was just going to say the one thing that I really appreciated earlier this week was that the Biden administration was low-key trolling the fact that this case was coming up by hosting a celebration of the Americans with Disability Act and the Rehabilitation Act. And I noticed it because it was on Selma Blair's Instagram. As someone who has suffered with MS for many years now. And I was like, good for them. People have to remember, the ADA feels like something that is so utterly ingrained that it's one of these things we think has been handled and it's not. And also in reading through this case, I didn't totally understand the idea of a civil rights tester, which is what the woman was in this case. A civil rights tester is someone who works to uncover discrimination for the sole purpose of uncovering it, not because they have experienced it in the normal course of their everyday life. So I thought I was like, I learned something new today, Erin. I did not know what that was, but.
Yeah. I would say one thing that the people that are suing over the enforcement of the ADA are complaining that in a lot of cases, if you're a tester who sues over the ADA, you usually don't get like money.
Right.
You just make force the business into compliance, and they pay your lawyer's fees.
Right.
And so there have been lawyers representing testers for ADA who have inflated their fees to extract money.
Right.
So the only people that are making money from this are the lawyers.
Right.
And that feels like, I mean, maybe
don't do that.
That's okay.
I don't think that's
Like
great.
they
Maybe
should get their time and their fees compensated, but let's not get rich off this. All right. Like,
of course. And this also could have implications for other civil rights issues. So if the Supreme Court were to roll back the ADA, it would be detrimental to the ability to talk about, seek legal remedy for discrimination sought elsewhere. And it's really, it really makes me nervous because, this is not the same thing, but, there are certain people, I think, in the U.S. that are not considered by the general population as having a right to be a part of society.
Yeah.
And I think for one of those groups is children. People are really hostile to like children being part of society, children being incorporated into society, people with disabilities, the elderly. Like there's this weird, I don't know, maybe I'm just picking up on some vibes, but there's this feeling where people who are not in those groups or directly affected by a member of those groups or taking care of somebody in those groups, people think that they are entitled to a society where they don't have to encounter those people at all.
Yeah.
And the ADA makes it so that disabled people can like exercise their right to exist in society
and enjoy it.
And enjoy it. Yes, exactly. Just to go to a restaurant, to go to a hotel, to like even, amusement parks. There's some rides that are ADA accessible, and it just is it's really disturbing. I feel like the Supreme Court isn't it's an arm of the U.S. government that doesn't aim in any way to make Americans' lives better.
No. Not to bring up Beyonce, I'm always doing that. But I don't know if y'all saw the video going around of a fan who was trying to fly to Seattle. He's in a wheelchair, and the airline basically said, we can't accommodate your wheelchair on this plane. And so he did not make it to Seattle to see the show. Ultimately, Beyonce's team got him to a show, so he was able to see one. But it just kind of felt like, oh, you don't get to enjoy this thing because you're in a wheelchair and you can't walk onto this plane and just sit down.
That's bullshit. I did not
like
see that. That's
else.
Bullshit.
Yeah, and so I agree. It just feels like there's not concern. I think it's actually more of what you said, less of not just concern, but people don't want to have to deal with that. But we're a collective society and we should. And I think something people should definitely remember, not be so short-sighted. If COVID has taught us anything, none of us is that far away from being, disabled in some way. And so wouldn't you want those protections if you were in that position? And even if you're not, you should just want that for people.
Yeah, it's a good point, Shaniqua.
Yeah, you're right. COVID was like a mass disabling event, too. There are people, we still don't know who all is impacted by long COVID, who can't go upstairs like they used to, who can't do things they used to. I mean, it's a bad look. And I hope that the Supreme Court chooses to reinforce the ADA rather than strip it. But I'm not optimistic literally about anything. There's also a case, we'll get more into this on a future show, but there's another case about whether public school children have a right to choose names and pronouns affirming their gender identity, or whether parents get to manage that. I personally don't believe that children are property.
Right.
That's just, I don't know.
They also didn't ask to be here.
They didn't ask to be. Your job as a parent is to like keep them safe. Your job as a parent is not to control them and teach them anyway, we'll get into that more. But basically this is a law that deliberately targets and victimizes trans kids across the country. And it is, look, if you do this to your kid, if you're a parent and you do this to your kid, they're not going to want to hang. They're not going to want anything to do with you when they reach adulthood. So what's your end game? Why do it?
Yeah. It feels like they want to codify bad parenting into law. It's just why are you being this way? And I imagine these are the same people who, when they're older and their kids do not want to help, care for them, they're wondering why. Or even more concerning, you see, suicide rates or depression and anxiety rates amongst children and teens in the LGBTQ community. And I'm not a parent, but, you know, I have a nephew and there are the children in my life. And I just can't imagine saying, no, you can't be who you are. I'm going to make your life harder. Like, the world is cruel enough. To have to come home to that just seems really, really like a bad parent. I really don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's they should call this, like, you know, any law that requires schools to follow the parents' directives on pronouns and names versus the children themselves.
Yeah.
It's like the, you know, I got spanked as a kid and I turned out
Yeah.
fine kind of ethos. And it's like, you didn't actually.
No.
You turned out
You're
really
actually not okay.
bad, Cheryl. You're not doing okay. That's why you're in a fight at the Applebee's. Like, you should not perpetuate whatever made you you.
And it's what you just said about not, like, as if children don't have agency and rights over how they feel and move through the world. I mean, just because you're young does not mean you don't know who you are.
Right. And I think it's one thing to be like, look, you can't get a tattoo and smoke pot until you're 18. Or you shouldn't actually until your frontal lobe closes at 25 because it's just bad for your brain. But I can't stop you once you turn 18. I'm not going to facilitate it before then. That's one thing. That's keeping a kid safe. Yeah. But like making their identity not feel safe to them in their home is like the opposite of that. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I sometimes don't feel like a person, and I would like to travel to Mars and form a colony. And you're all invited. You are all invited. We're also going to get more into laws that are targeting abortion still. But we're going to just completely burn through our news time. Alyssa, you've got something that's a little bit more, it's like bad for America, but upbeat. The fact that it exists is because there shouldn't be. It's banned book week.
Oh, it's banned book week. Sorry, it's banned book week. Here we are. What are they doing, Erin? Why do they want to ban books? What is it about books that terrifies people so much? They're literally these people, moms of liberty, going up against the American Library Association. Who wants to fuck with librarians?
I know.
What is wrong with you if you're fucking with a librarian?
If that's your enemy, you have problems.
But
you're the bad guy.
I love that the name of this year's theme for the American Library Association is "Let Freedom Read." It's like, take that, you freedom eagle on the back of your car, people. Like, we're taking freedom back, and people should be able to read. The one thing that I thought was so interesting when we were looking through this article. One, these people who want to ban all the books that have been banned and challenged over the past year, the LGBTQIA plus content is listed as a reason for 7 of the challenges. What's that mean? It could just mean that a character is gay. What? That is the entire That's it. That's all you have to do is be like, I don't like that there's a gay character in this book. And also these nuts have tried to equate LGBTQ representation to pornography.
Yeah.
What?
It doesn't make sense.
We've got a whole character in Christian mythology that has her sexual status as part of her name. Virgin Mary. Like, that's way more pornographic than like 2 adult men holding hands and taking their child to a parent-teacher conference in a book for children.
Yeah. I was just going to say, something I think about is all of the fairy tales and things that I heard as a child. And I mean, I think that has been a lot more detrimental to society than children being exposed to gay couples, because how many young women or, you know, people, millennials now are like, oh, you know, guys are supposed to be awful when they like you. Like, it's all of these things that we've kind of incorporated into how we move through the world and live life, and they're awful. And they come from a lot of media. They come from books. They come from the stories that we were told. There's this account I follow on Instagram. It's like a, you know, help women get out of toxic relationships and stuff. But she's posted a few animated graphics, and it's a therapist sitting with the different Disney princesses, and one is like Cinderella, and she's like, so you dance with a guy for one night and now you think he's the love of your life and you want to be with him forever, and Cinderella's just kind of sitting there like, and I mean, those are a lot of the things that we were
told.
told.
Also, the guy that wants to be with Cinderella forever requires all the women to show their feet to him.
So he's a weirdo.
Yeah, what
on
a
top
fucking
of that.
weird guy. Really, Cinderella for a foot guy? You would think that would be the, like, oh, wow, dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
Like, if I were Cinderella, my shoe fell off, and I was like, gosh, I really liked him. We were really connecting. And then, like, the next week I saw a poster that was like, you got to take your feet out, ladies. I would be like, wow.
Yeah.
I won't be taking my feet out for this guy.
Just throw the other shoe out.
Or throw it in the trash. Okay. Well, I guess this lady she must be in the trash. Yeah, that's so true. Also, when I was a kid, did you have any of those like fairy tale books that were like the old school fairy tales? Like the one where the Little Mermaid was supposed to kill the prince,
of course.
and then she died and turned into foam.
They were like the Grimm's Tales vibes of early days.
Where there was always people getting birds plucking out their eyes
and their heart was always in someone's hand.
Yeah, there was somebody who was holding their guts, and like Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella were like kind of like some necrophilia
weird
implications.
Weird shit that everyone thought was fine. They cut stepsisters' toes off, didn't they, in Cinderella?
Yeah. They
Thank
cut
you,
their
Caroline.
toes off. It was super gross and metal. Actually, I would listen to those podcasts with fairy tales as horror stories because they are all very scary. I had one that was about 3 sisters, and one had one eye, and one had 3 eyes, and one had 2 eyes.
Sounds like my cats.
The 3-eyed one. Yeah. They were mean to the one with 2 eyes. And it was just what is happening? Everybody had lead poisoning.
Yeah. Sounds like that's what needed to be banned.
Seriously. I mean, look, also, I don't think that banning books from libraries is going to have the effect that the people that are its most ardent supporters believe it's going to do. Like, when have adults trying to keep kids from doing something ever actually kept kids from doing things?
And now, I mean, kids can just get on the internet and order whatever they want. They can read whatever they want. It's stupid and short-sighted. And if I'm honest, I feel like there's a larger effort, not to get all serious, to just dumb down our society. Because when you have a dumber population, it's easier to control them. It's easier to make them think that, like, the craziness that Donald Trump is doing is okay and normal. And then people want to feel smart. And so when you feed them nonsense that makes them feel smart, they feel empowered with knowledge, but it's knowledge that's really harmful. And I don't know, it just makes me really, really concerned. Just the attack on intellectualism and just learning. And I think we're going to continue to see some just really harmful effects and sometimes violent and dangerous effects on society.
Yeah. And speaking of when we were talking about excluding people from society, I feel like trans and gay people are in those categories. Like, conservatives in America want to turn America into a megachurch, like a forever megachurch with like one of those pastors flying on the. Have you seen those videos on TikTok?
Grifting at the front of the sanctuary, like Donald Trump. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I would not want to see him in one of those, like. There's like videos on TikTok of megachurch pastors with the like Peter Pan harness. Yeah. So they fly over the whatever. I don't know if that would work for Donald Trump. I feel like maybe
he'd have a wedgie.
Yeah, exactly. Oof. Alyssa.
Sorry.
Horrible.
Okay, I'm riffing over here. I'm feeling loose.
One more thing. We both saw this kind of being talked about this week. Can you talk about the Women in Tech conference and how it went?
Orlando, Florida. Let me set the scene. I feel like Sophia from Golden Girls. Sicily, 1940. Orlando, Florida, earlier this week. The Grace Hopper celebration is a Women in Tech jobs fair. How nice is that, right? Let's try to make Silicon Valley and the tech world look a little bit more like America and let more women and people of color and non-binary tech workers have a chance to see what's out there. Well, you guys, there were some dudes who were like, not so fast. And they crashed the conference. Can you imagine the like WhatsApp, weird Facebook group, like whatever these men are communicating via, being like, yeah, fuck those bitches. We're showing up at their job fair. Like, what?
Women and children last, apparently.
Yep. Forever and always.
Yeah, it was like the photos from that event are just like, guys, read
Get
the
a
room.
grip, as my mother would say. Get a grip.
Ugh, that's one of the reasons that people were flooding the men were flooding the conference was I've heard that many tech workers have been laid off over the last couple years. And if you're not from the US and you need a work visa, people are getting to a point where it's kind of crunch time. Like they got to get out of the US or they got to get another job. And so there is a desperation there, but also I'm sorry, man, not an excuse.
Yeah.
I would that would be an automatic disqualifier for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If somebody showed up to a place that was not for them and shoved their resume in my face and took time that was supposed to be for somebody else.
You mean a bully? Yeah. If a bully showed up and was like, I want you to talk to me and only me right now? Gross.
Yeah. I don't want you at my company.
I don't want you at my company. Boo.
Oh, I love that new girl boss exclusive. I don't want you at my company. Okay, so there you have it. That's the news for this week. Supersized because we're feeling, super
newsy.
Fresh.
Super newsy.
Stick around. We're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, this week's interview. And welcome back. You are listening to Hysteria, the podcast for people who want to ski and surf in the same day. Jealous, Alyssa, over there in New York?
Erin, I have leaves, okay? My foliage is thriving, so
we've got leaves
don't
too,
get sassy.
And they're all the same color, and they've fallen on the ground already. But you know what?
Because they're dead. They didn't change. They just
and surfing
died.
in the same. California is America's best state, and I'm not just saying that because I live here. I'm sorry, it is. It's America's best state.
It's fine. I'm telling
state.
New Mexico and Michigan that you have turned on them. So go ahead.
I haven't turned on New Mexico and Michigan. I just think that they're not as good as California.
All right.
That's all.
All
okay.
right.
Okay, speaking of California, our guest today is the first partner of California. She's founded 2 organizations, Misrepresentation, which creates media about intersectional gender justice, and California Partners Project, which fights for gender equality and child well-being. She's a documentarian and a mom, and of course, she's married to a guy called Governor Gavin Newsom. Heard of him. It's Jennifer Siebel Newsom. Welcome to Hysteria.
Thanks for having me. And I love that you love California.
I do. I'm a transplant. I'm from the Midwest. I tried out New York, love New York, came out here, and now I'm in it. I'm in. So what is it like being first partner and working with your husband on political goals?
I mean, it's great. It's fun. It's, partnership makes the world go round. And so I've been able through this role to basically carry the work that I've always cared about, that I've always done, which is champion women and champion children and make sure that children get the best start in life. And so that's why we launched California for All Women and California for All Children.
That's amazing. So obviously you and your husband are both your own people, so you probably agree on a lot of things, but not everything. If you disagree with your husband on a decision he makes as governor, do you talk to him about it or do you just kind of let it slide?
If I disagree, I kick him out of the room. No, I'm kidding. No, we totally, have to give each other our unique perspectives, right? We're both individuals. We have had different life experiences. I've lived and worked and focused on women and children my entire life. I've lived all over the world. He's a complete policy wonk. He knows so much more than me in certain realms. I went to Stanford Business School. I grew up in a conservative household. So we're constantly having dialogue, and it's rich dialogue and it's rich education. But, I completely respect and trust him. I will push him. But I also, will respect his final decision. And honestly, we're so aligned. It's awesome. And I learned a lot from him because I'm not a political junkie. I don't come from this realm. I haven't studied and spent time in office. And so he is the governor. The people elected him. I'm there to support, I'm there to partner, and I'm there to show Californians that we're committed to partnering with them. And in particular, I'm really focused on centering women and girls through California for All Women. And then again, on making sure that kids in California get the best start in life.
Mm-hmm. And you've worked so extensively in the areas that you've worked. Have you ever had a moment where you're like, oh, I taught my husband something about that he didn't know before, and this helped inform his decision-making process?
Well, I definitely know that my films have influenced his thinking. If you've heard him talk about toxic masculinities and the whole paradigm of power, control, and aggression, he got that from my documentary, The Mask You Live In. With misrepresentation, you can't unsee what you've seen. And so he's completely become educated as a feminist. And then I would, most recently, my documentary, Fair Play, was all about all of the invisible work that women have shouldered and the benefits to men and leaning into more care at home. So I think I have a lot more respect in the household right now of having made that documentary and demonstrated to him how the benefits to him doing more at home, to partnering more at home. Again, not just for him personally, men who step into more care at home, they're healthier, they're happier, they have better sex lives, greater longevity. But to the children themselves, they have better cognitive development, behavior, and long-term healthier relationships. So again, he's a sponge and he learns from everything around him. And I think he's picked up a lot from my documentaries.
You have been so vulnerable as a public figure. You opened up during the Harvey Weinstein trial and also about the death of your sister. At the time of the Weinstein trial, you said you were shocked by the level of misogyny that still exists. What exactly shocked you the most? And do you think it's gotten any better?
So I was shocked by the level of misogyny that's allowed and perpetuated, not just in the courtroom by the defense attorneys, but also by that's permissible, that judges don't say, hey, that's a rape myth. We don't this is the 21st century. Are you not educated and informed? But also that's in the population. I mean, I think, in some ways when I made Misrepresentation and it premiered in 2011 at the Sundance Film Festival, Oprah bought it. It kind of literally made its tour around the world, to standing room only audiences, packed crowds, the whole thing. I felt like we were making change. And, for all of the hard work of the women before me, I felt like, okay, progress is happening. And then, we had the advent of social media and the personal iPhone, and we started to see this backlash against women's progress. We saw it with the 2016 election. We saw it with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And so, but I still am an eternal optimist. You have to be, to a certain extent. And so, yes, I was shocked by the belief systems and the patterns that people still believe in rape myths, that they still don't believe women. I come from a place of believing women, of trusting women, of valuing women, of wanting to center women and the feminine experience. Of course, you can't, that's a generalization and we're not all the same. We don't all share the same values. But I definitely recognize how much work we have to do. And really my documentaries, Misrepresentation, The Mask You Live In, The Great American Lie, Fair Play, are all about chipping away at the patriarchy through really outing and questioning harmful gender stereotypes and norms, and challenging all of us to partner to overcome them and to create a better future for everyone. And I guess, I was hoping when I formed the Representation Project after the premiere of Misrepresentation, I was hoping we wouldn't still have to be in existence, 12, 13 years later. And here we are still at it. So, I know cultural change takes time. In some cases, it might be a 20-year plus process. And so I'm in it for the long haul. And that's why I'm so grateful for the opportunity to use my voice and platform to speak truth to power, to challenge the status quo, and really to harness sort of the collective understanding that we all have to recognize women's plight, especially marginalized women, vulnerable women, women of color, in addition to LGBTQ community, immigrant women, et cetera. And that as long as we can lift all of these communities up, and when we lift all of these communities up and we partner together, we will actually achieve equality once and for all.
Mm-hmm. So fall is here, and as you know, school has started. You've got kids. You know all about it. Your office does a lot of work to help California kids. Can you tell us a bit more about what you're working on now that kids are back in school?
Yes. So from the get-go, we were committed to making sure that we, again, give children the best start in life and center their well-being. And that starts with access to the outdoors. And so we launched a parks initiative with library parks passes where you can go and have free access to your state parks. Just like you have at the national level with the fourth grade pass, we also have an adventure fourth grade pass, but also, just again, to ensure that California kids take advantage and their families take advantage of the fact that these are actually their parks. We also championed farm to school. So we started the groundwork so that when the governor signed legislation for universal meals, we could guarantee and continue to work towards improving and ensuring that those 2 free meals a day in schools are nutritious, delicious, and locally sourced. An incredible partnership with farmers, culinary experts, folks in sort of the food systems arena, educators, and the like, has really been transformative, and it's been a role model and really guide for the nation. 8 other states now have universal meals after we were the first to sign that into legislation. And 13 others are partnered with us looking at farm to school and what's possible there. So it's really exciting for me. It's a strategic play to grow local economies through, real food service jobs, culinary training, and apprenticeship programs for those to work in the food service industry, in the school food industry, in addition to scratch kitchen investments. It's also a play to address climate change because we're through our networks that we're creating and our regional staff, we are connecting local small and medium scale farmers to school districts so that they can source directly. Again, our school foods system is essentially the largest restaurant chain in California. And that guaranteeing that procurement is so good economically for farmers. And then again, all the benefits of climate smart ag and sourcing locally. So there's less, pollutants from vehicles, less packaging and waste, et cetera, and we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions there. And then again, most importantly, all the benefits to school children who get 75% of their nutrients in these 2 meals a day, breakfast and lunch, especially in lower income communities, whereby we see improvements by eating whole, fresh, real food in terms of their cognition, their behavior, their social emotional learning. They're also learning science and math and becoming future environmental stewards in their school gardens or when they're studying the food system in their, outdoor ed class. So it's really exciting. And then lastly, huge focus obviously on literature and reading. And I have a whole partnership with California State Libraries. And all of this is an antidote to the big thing that I just wanted to share, which is around mental health. We recognize that mental health in America was going on a sort of downward trajectory prior to the pandemic. It didn't help with children spending so much time online and being exposed to these digital devices in space. But it just all kind of coincides with the iPhone and the rise of the supercomputer tablet in your hand 24/7 and social media. And so I'm as a mother of 4 young children, I'm a big proponent and advocate of making sure that kids have antidotes to time online and that parents have the support they need so that those are just tools to connect children in positive ways and so that we can use tech for good, but limit all the negatives, which are quite expansive right now.
Mm-hmm. And on the COVID note, the impact of those school years on kids is still being felt like across the country. There's more chronic absenteeism than before the pandemic. There's failing test scores across the U.S. What can we learn from the current crisis in education nationally, and how is California working to overcome those issues in addition to what you already mentioned?
Well, I'm super proud of what we're doing in California. I think probably many states recognized, as we did, how broken our healthcare system was when the pandemic happened. And given the fact in California, for example, that both healthcare and education are locally controlled, there's a lot of creativity that needed to happen to basically ensure that everyone was sort of moving in the same direction of centering the child and their health and well-being. And so I'm really proud of all of our investments in the community school model, just as I'm super proud of the state's investments at $4.7 billion in revamping the whole youth behavioral health initiative and making sure that children get the support they need where they're predominantly at, which is at school. So we have this whole campaign and investment to grow the numbers of folks in healthcare, but also with education that is centered around understanding that mental health and physical health are inextricably linked, but that as a society, we all have mental health, right? And not all of us have extremes of mental health. A lot of us just have butterflies in our stomach. A lot of us just have maybe we're anxious because we have a test or there's stuff going on at home or there's a big life-changing event. And so really helping kids to name what they're feeling, but also what's going on, and that a lot of it's normal, a lot of it's part of being human, and a lot of it's just a result of living in these fast-paced lives with technology that's coming at you 24/7, communicating to you where people have access to you. And that's a real, we're all kind of living in our limbic system and fight or fight, but with a lot of more stress than previous generations. And so a lot of that is what we have to address. And I think we're starting to invest in some really creative ways to look at the impact of technology on our youth, hold tech accountable, and really try to steer them to be this force for good of connecting youth that need that sisterhood, that partnership, that mentorship. Because again, it's steeped in so much ugliness and divisiveness and separation, and rather than sort of a connection, which is really what it should be all about.
So I read in an interview that you did a couple months ago that in your office, you have a whiteboard, and on the whiteboard, it says gender equity and it says support for survivors. And you mentioned before the California for All Women program that you have. Can you tell listeners a little bit more about that and perhaps how it differs from a group like Moms for Liberty, for example?
Well, our gender equity focus through the First Partners Office and California for All Women has a few pillars. One is pay equity, because we all know that women are not paid equitably in our country. California actually has some of the strongest pay laws in the nation and has a relatively smaller pay gap, but we still have a pay gap that's larger for Black women and brown women, and also larger for mothers and LGBTQ plus women. So we have work to do, and it's why I launched California Equal Pay Pledge when we first came into office. And by the way, the pay gap obviously has historically contributed to the wealth gap for women. California women lose $87 billion a year to the wealth gap or the pay gap, and it creates a wealth gap or furthers the wealth gap. And so we have a lot of work to do. Over 147 companies, including organizations and entities like California state government, have signed the Equal Pay Pledge. So we are making progress. Another one of our top initiatives that we partnered with California Partners Project on is ensuring that SB 826, which was legislation to guarantee more diverse women's seats on public company boards, that law was successful. In 2018, there were 15.5% women on public company board seats. Today, the number is 33%. It's kind of stalled as a result of some legal conundrums and questions regarding its legality. We've appealed. We'll see where things lie, but I think that we have made the case that there are so many benefits to having diverse women seated around public company tables. The third issue that we've been championing is family-friendly workplace policies. The governor's, championed everything from childcare to, we have championed childcare to paternal family leave, paid family leave, and that feels really good. We still, could try to do more, but the federal government kind of has to jump in here and help us out. Separately, reproductive rights and maternal health are big issues that we're championing. Black women in particular still, and Black and brown children are still more likely to die at birth and have complications than white children, even in California, even though we're doing better than most states. So that's one of our focuses. And then reproductive rights, California is trying to lead. We've set up this 22 state alliance. I'm super proud of that. When it comes to violence against women, there is a lot that we need to do. I've had conversations with different folks. I have a group committed to kind of examining this, just as we're separately really examining sex trafficking in the state. I'm not at all pleased with what's happening in our state with regards to sex trafficking and the fact that it's so blatantly in our face. And so we have a lot of and gangs and perpetrators and pimps and Johns are all getting away with it. And so, again, this is a travesty that's affecting a lot of border states and states with, like California, with a huge immigrant population and just the vast size of entry into California and our ports and what have you. So we have work to do there. And I'm really excited because I'm diving into it in partnership with folks from Karen Bass to advocates like Mira Sorvino. And it feels really good to be focused on providing any strategic support to not just have these splatterings of legislation here and there, whether it's violence against women or sex trafficking, which is another form of violence against women, but really to have like a cohesive policy package that when we leave office, we know will center and ensure that women are in a better place in California.
Well, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a great conversation, and I'm personally very happy that we have somebody like you as close to the leadership in the state as we do.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to both of you.